Welcome to episode 8 of the Motorcar Marketing Podcast. I'm Ashley Myers with motorcarmarketing.com. In this episode's main segment, I'm going to be interviewing Damian Thompson. Damian is an expert with email marketing. Email marketing is something that all car dealerships should be doing, but most aren't doing it correctly. It's much more complicated than just sending out emails announcing your upcoming sales. Damian has some great tips and advice for car dealers about how they should be using email, so stay tuned for that. If you find this episode valuable, please help us out by giving us a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread the word about the podcast, so it's very much appreciated. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to send us an email at info@motorcarmarketing.com. I want to improve this podcast, so some honest, constructive feedback is very much appreciated. A couple of quick notes. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on the blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.motorcarmarketing.com/podcasts. If you'd like to get our free video guide, Selling More Cars on Craigslist, just go to www.motorcarmarketing.com and put in your name and email address into the form in the sidebar. This guide goes through all the recent Craigslist changes and shows you some actual statistics from dealerships who post heavily on Craigslist, both now and last year before the big changes were rolled out. So if you're wondering if you should still be posting your cars on Craigslist or wondering how to get more value out of your Craigslist ads, definitely check out this free video. So now let's get into the main segment. Today, I'm going to be talking with email marketing expert Damian Thompson. Here's the interview. Welcome, Damian, to the Motorcar Marketing Podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
No worries. Happy to be here, Ashley.
Great. So to start out, I wonder if you can give us a quick overview of your career and how you got into email marketing.
Sure. I mean, I'm a salty old sales dog. So, I started selling, newspaper subscriptions 25 years ago and then did some time in car sales. And so I've been around sales and marketing for a long time. In my career, I worked for big, large software companies like McAfee and Symantec, and then running sales and marketing teams. And as I started learning more about marketing and not just the selling, I started focusing a lot on the online marketing and email marketing. And then about 4 years ago, I kind of ditched the suit and tie, decided I wanted to go out and do my own thing and find a business I could run online. And I really started focusing on copywriting and email marketing at the time as a way to, they say that copywriting is just salesmanship in print. So I kind of took to it very quickly and really focused on a way to create a relationship with a customer. And I think that email marketing is the best way to create a long-term relationship with a customer.
For sure. So let's start out sort of at the beginning of the sales funnel for car dealerships. How can they collect email addresses? And then once they collect email addresses, what should their process be for touching base with those people?
Sure. So I think it all starts with, a commitment to actually collect them. I think, one of the big mistakes people make, especially bricks and mortar businesses, which, dealerships are, is they don't think, I'm in a people business, right? I'm in a face-to-face business. I don't need email marketing, and I don't need an email address. And I disagree. I think that, you want to communicate. They use it poorly, so they think of email marketing as all those spammy newsletter, useless, stuff they get from other people. And yes, no one needs another newsletter, right? No one needs another, hey, we're having our 4th of July sale email. But to be able to communicate with your customer when they want to communicate is a very powerful thing. So I think just make a commitment to collecting them is the first step. And then obviously, it's easy enough when they buy a car, right? You're doing all the paperwork anyway, and you can do all that. But I think most sales professionals in the car industry, they have a qualification process, right? They take them into the office or to their pod or whatever and kind of start filling out the sheet. What are they currently driving? How long have they owned it? How big is the family? Some personal details. And I think it would be easy enough to ask for their email address there as well, right? And ask for that. And then that's the physical world. And then, we live in a dual world now, online as well. I think that one of the big tricks about, online marketing and kind of lead generation online is you want to go where your customers are. And if you're just waiting for someone to show up on your lot, that's you're waiting. You're being passive, right? And being passive is no way to build your business, right? You want to be more active. You want to generate your own demand. And we were talking a little bit before the show. Joe Girard, who wrote that book, the kind of the great car salesman of the 70s and 80s. And he had this system back then where he was selling up to like 6 cars a day. And this is in the 70s. Like there was no computers or anything else because he was doing outbound, right? He was picking up the phone and calling people from the phone book, right? And then when he had like index cards, and he was doing database marketing essentially. But now all that, you can do that really, it's much easier. You can actually do that online. But you can go to where your customers are. The car buyers are fast, passionate fanatics a lot of times, right? So if you can go into forums, you can go to places where they congregate. You can go to Facebook, have a Facebook page, and not a Facebook page for your site, but go to where you're a Chevy dealer, go to the, I love Chevy, Facebook page and go there and be helpful and answer questions and then drive them to some sort of way to get into your funnel. So I think why things like, the sales process has fundamentally changed in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, if you were a salesperson, your responsibility, how you got people to come talk to you is you were the arbiter of information. So if people wanted to know something, they came to you. They had to come on your lot to get a brochure, right? They wanted to get the brochure of the new Corvette. They had to come pick up the brochure. Well, now all the information is online. So by the time they come see you, they've already answered a lot of the questions that they used to ask you. So you need to get in that conversation much earlier than that, and you need to be helpful. Or I would say kind of approach it differently, like say, create some piece of content which was, the top 10 things, the top 10 questions you're not getting the answer to online, right? 5 things you're not learning from, cars.com or whatever it happens to be. But you want to go where they are and then offer value. And I think that's the biggest thing about email is that the email is supposed to be about your audience, about the reader, not about you. So offer value, have a reason to contact them. Don't make it promotional. Don't make it just an electronic megaphone. Make it some reason, something that people actually would want to read. And I think that's the hardest part, but that's the part that kind of separates you from everybody else.
And just to be clear, you're talking about this piece of free content. Basically, on your landing page, you say, get our free guide, how to buy 5 things you don't know how to buy a used car about. And then to get that, you have to opt into the email list.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. So now let's kind of move along. So the car dealers have started to collect a bunch of emails, addresses for prospects. Then what should that email chain be like?
So yeah, I think it's definitely going to depend, right? I mean, so car buyers are different, car dealerships are different. Are you an exotic car dealership? Do you sell? Are you a volume dealership? Or so I think a lot of it depends on your audience. But the better you understand your ideal client, the easier it is to kind of create email content for them. So if you're looking at, if you're a Mercedes dealership, what you will send them will be different than if you're a Ford dealership, right? But what you want to do is you want to, again, this comes back to kind of having a better view of them as a customer and understanding, what are, most buyers, will fall into, you'll have some natural segments in your business, right? Are they buying a family car? Are they buying a work truck? Are they buying, are they single? Are they buying a bachelor mobile? So if you can start thinking of the kind of the natural buyers in your marketplace and start segmenting them that way, it becomes easier to write content towards that person, right? So if I'm a dealership in Florida and I sell trucks to people that like to buy, their primary purpose is to, trail their, boat or jet skis or whatever. They're a, outdoor enthusiast. Like I want to write content about that, right? Not about the truck and, hey, here's our new Ford F-150. It's more, here's kind of, people love to see stories of other people. So, here's Bob who just bought, who's using his F-150 to track, to trail his, old timey popcorn maker that he takes to festivals and shows on the weekends, and kind of case studies and spotlights and kind of show people the use cases and show people actually kind of getting the value out of the vehicle, and don't make it a sales pitch. It's not an advertisement, right? It's a conversation.
And so just roughly speaking, how many of those in the sequence? So someone opts in, they get the free guide, 5 tips to buying a used car, and then how many of these sort of stories would you recommend sending out? And what would the time frame be? 1 a week for 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. With frequency, you can be much more frequent up front. So generally, what I talk about in kind of the B2B space, which is obviously a little different, it's a little more aggressive than that. But I would say, I would think weekly for a couple of weeks would be good. And then maybe you go to every 2 weeks, and then maybe, you could even go out to then once a month after that if you really wanted to. But I think you want to have some level of consistency. I think that twice a month is a good frequency for most people to kind of stay in mind frame, but not be obnoxious, right? But again, it comes down to quality. I mean, if you wrote an awesome email, right, and was full of information that was directed towards my interests and my likes, I'd be happy to receive one of those a week, right?
Sure.
If it was all promotion, I don't want to get one of those a year, right? So it really does come down to the quality of it. But yes, I think that I would probably, some of the signs on my list I would do faster than once a week. So I would do generally one the first day, then I'd probably do 2 or 3 times that first week, and then go to once a week. Because someone that just enters into your sales funnel, they're much more interested in what you have to say at the very beginning, right? And then if they haven't taken action over a period of a couple of weeks, then definitely kind of drag it out farther and farther. But you want to have constant commitment. And so if you're talking about by month 2, month 3, you're only doing 2 emails a month, that's relatively clear, straightforward to how to do, right?
Yeah. Okay, so do you think it's ever appropriate then for a car dealer, after they've maybe built some trust with the customer, to send them an email like what you initially said, hey, we're having our 4th of July sale?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing wrong with promoting every once in a while. It's just a balance, right? Mm-hmm. So, I would say, this comes down to everything else. But yes, I mean, I think you want to promote your. I mean, it's show business, not show friends, right? So the idea, we're not cultivating relationships just to be nice guys, and we want to sell more cars. So absolutely, you want to promote your stuff. It's when you do it and how often you do it. So if you were doing an email a week, I would say 1 email a month of promotion would be okay, right? If you're doing 2 emails a month, then maybe every other month of promotion would be okay. Or promoting when you actually have something to promote, like if it is a 4th of July sale. But it's also how you do it. Like, don't send out the same ad that you're putting into the newspaper that weekend, right? Actually make it look more personal, make it look like more like the trick to email is regardless of whether you're selling to 1 person or 10,000 people, it should read like you're only sending to the person that's reading it, right? It should read that way. It should be email is a personal communication medium. So it shouldn't look like this is a big blast of 10,000 emails. It shouldn't look like an advertisement. It should look like, hey, Ashley, I remember when we first talked a couple months ago, you were interested in this. Well, we're doing our 4th of July sale this weekend, and here are 3 cars that would match exactly what you were talking about 6 months ago when we first started talking, right? That's powerful, right? Mm-hmm. You saying, here's our ad that's going out in the paper this weekend, that's not very powerful.
Mm-hmm. So one other question I have, and I'd be curious to hear your answer. Do you recommend, and we'll kind of get more into some of the tools and how you can actually facilitate all this stuff that you're talking about, but in terms of collecting email addresses, do you recommend those Lightbox pop-up windows that people use on their blogs and stuff? Would you recommend that for a car dealership?
So I don't recommend those. Now, this is one of those eternal online debates, and it's who's right, who's wrong. I don't know. Here's my thought process. My thought process is a couple things. Is that I believe in this. I believe that you don't want to force people onto your list. I believe you want people to get onto your list that want to get on your list, right? And so I think that the people that really get caught up in the whole Lightbox and the pop-ups and the welcome gates and all these kind of tools that kind of force people to get on before they can read anything, is they love to throw out numbers like, oh, I got a 25% increase in opt-ins. Okay, but are they good opt-ins? Is that someone that was going to opt in anyway? And how many? It's not measuring the people that left because you annoyed them, right? So I mean, I know that I've left websites because they annoyed me, right? And so, it's not measuring that. And also, I think that if you offer value, someone's going to want to get on your list, and that's a more qualified buyer. And it comes down to, what do you really want? Do you want a large list for ego's sake, or do you want a smaller list of more qualified people? And I would always opt to especially in a sales environment where you're going to follow up, right? Where you're going to call people, or you're going to there's some manual labor involved. I would rather a smaller, tighter, more qualified lead list than a big number.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's a good answer. So now let's talk about, we've kind of covered sort of the front end. So now let's talk about after the sale. So the person has come in, they've bought a car. Hopefully car dealerships are collecting email addresses from the people who are actually buying cars. They go into a different sequence. Can you give us some tips about what you think that sequence would be?
Yes, well, I think this is the most powerful, actually, when it comes to the car dealerships specifically. So I think that what you want to do is I would model this a lot on what a lot of the successful software companies are doing these days, which is, in software terms, they call it onboarding, but it would be similar to a car dealership. So you want you want someone, I say the 30 days to wow, right? When someone buys from you, like you want to leave a really good impression, and you don't have a long time to do that. So if you can leave a great impression in that first month of them being a customer of yours, like they'll forgive a lot of things after that. So 6 months later, when the service department doesn't have the part they need or whatever the problem is, they'll still have this really positive feeling about you because your initial impression after they bought was so powerful. So to me, what I would do is you just bought a car from me. I would have a campaign set up. It'd be all automated, but I'd have a campaign set up that was you get an email 24 hours after you bought your car, and it'd be like, how was the first day of ownership of a new Ashley Myers Ford, that sort of thing, right? And then here's the numbers you need. If you ever get in trouble, call this, all that, blah blah blah, right? And then I would send an email a week later, and it would be like, how was your first week as an Ashley Ford? So what we found is the first week you still got that great new car smell, and be very experiential with them, right? And kind of remind them of why they bought, and kind of make them feel positive, and say, just a quick reminder. You want to get your oil changed every 3,000 miles and every blah, 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 right? And then I'd send an email out probably like 21 days after they bought the car, right? And it would be along the lines of, you probably don't see a lot of us advertising on TV or advertising, because we think the best way to build our dealership is through word of mouth. And in that way, what would be awesome for us would be, if you would let us know, maybe one or two people that you think would get value out of it. Ask for a testimonial, right? Say, did you enjoy your experience, right? If you enjoyed your experience, can you tease it? And I'd ask them 4 or 5 questions. What made you choose us over someone else? And I have this, and I ask them these 5 questions. And then based on that, I would then turn that into a testimonial. I'd email them back and say, hey, this is what you said. Would you be happy if we used this testimonial on our website? All right. Would you be happy if we did it somewhere else? And so I would start this relationship. You want to make them feel like they're a part of your process, a part of your team, right? And then, so I think that's a very powerful kind of first month onboarding. And then after that, I think what you want to do is you want to make sure that the other data points you've collected, you actually follow up on. So, everyone does, I like doing the weird things like, like a Thanksgiving Day email, right? Or a Thanksgiving Day card, or a Thanksgiving. So really a solid, kind of post-sale marketing program is going to be physical and virtual. So, you should be doing, don't send them a Christmas card, send them a Thanksgiving card, right? Or send them send them a card when their daughter graduates high school, right? That's a powerful thing, right? That's something that most people aren't doing, right? Sending them a generic birthday card, everyone does that. So I think that tying all that together and having a better overall view of your customer is what you want to be aiming for. And I think email is a piece of that for sure.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that's some good tips. So now let's talk a bit about the actual software that you can possibly use this. I've used Aweber. I think you're an expert on Infusionsoft. There's MailChimp. There's a bunch of these programs out there. Can you kind of just give us a rundown? I mean, maybe from soup to nuts. I mean, there's some of these car dealerships, as I said, they probably are doing nothing with email marketing. So, so I think Infusionsoft is more high end. That probably might not be right for them. So maybe just give us some overview of what these different software applications can do and what you recommend for the different levels of email marketing.
Sure. So I think I think you're right. I think there's a couple of things. So I think a lot of dealerships also have proprietary stuff, right? They're using some proprietary sales software and things like that. So at an entry level, you look at things what you call an ESP, which is an email service provider. That'd be your Awebers, your MailChimps, campaign monitors, things like that. And those are actually getting pretty advanced these days. So I think that's a great place to start. Basically everything we've talked about from automating the email can be done from that. Now, what they're not going to do is they're not going to do things like they're not going to have complete contact records. So they're not CRMs, right? So they're not going to know, when your daughter is graduating college or anything like that. It's not going to be a full view of the contact. It's more about lists. So putting people on lists. But you could do all that. You could have a new car buyer list. You could have a, interest, a Mustang interest list and whatever. So you could absolutely do all that with a traditional MailChimp or Aweber. I suggest people use MailChimp to start just because it's free. Like you can start for free for up to like 3,000 contacts. You can kind of figure it out a little bit, but it really comes down to personal choice. They're all pretty, $20 a month, $50 a month or whatever. But more importantly, it's about getting what matters more is the content you put into the email and actually doing it, like starting to collect the email addresses and starting to consistently put things out there. Then the next level up would be like an Infusionsoft or using a Salesforce plus a MailChimp or something, but more about going from lists where you're saying, okay, here's an interest or here's a type of buyer, and managing it manually by lists to an automation tool that says, okay, we're going to look at individual contacts and individual people and then start treating them differently based on behaviors they've taken. And so it is definitely the next level up. And then you go even higher than that, and then you're talking about kind of Pardot and Eloqua and Marketo, which now we're talking thousands of dollars a month, and there's some really high sophistication of what you can do. And I think it would be very valuable to some dealerships at time. But start small. Go get MailChimp, go get Aweber, right? I mean, go start there, right? I mean, start there and start to build your list. Start to get used to writing emails to them. A couple of key tips on my emails are. 3 tips. One is brevity is your friend. Short. Keep them short, right? People's attention spans are very small. You want to keep your email short and punchy. 2, it's all about them, right? Don't write about you. It's not, hey, we're the best dealership in the world. We're the #1 Ford dealer in the Southeast, whatever. No one cares about that, right? What they care about, hey, I know how difficult, buying a car is generally, the second or third largest purchase you make after your home and whatever, right? So, talk to them as they are human beings, right? And third is have a call to action of some type. So you want them to take action at the end. Now that can be something as simple as go check out our Facebook page. It can be something as simple as go read our new 5 tips to buying a used car. It can be whatever it is, but you want to start kind of training them to. I tell them something, I give them value, I connect, and I ask them to do something. I connect, I ask them to do something. And so you want to do those 3 things, and you can do all of that in a MailChimp or an Aweber, and that's where I would start.
Yeah. So, okay, just sum up those 3 things again, just real quick.
Sure. So,
put those down.
Yeah, be brief, all right? So, make it all about them, not about you, and have a compelling call to action.
Okay. I want to take one step back real quick back to the email clients. One concern that I would have, I've not used MailChimp, so I don't know exactly how it works, but with Aweber, they're very strict with double opt-ins, and that basically means that, if someone buys a car from you and then you go and put them onto that list, it's going to send them an email saying, do you want to actually be on this list? And they've got to click a link, say, yes, I want to be on this list. I would be a little worried that a lot of people might just not do that. So I think Constant Contact's a little more liberal on that, and you can import contacts and not have to double opt in. Is there anything you can speak to that with MailChimp or?
Yeah, so I hear you, and that's why I use Campaign Monitor for a long time for that same reason. So there are some hacks for that though. So if you upload the list through like a Wufoo or through a third-party app to MailChimp, you can turn off the double opt-in. But I'm not sure about Aweber, but I think Aweber. So yeah, you're right. You want to upload a list is what you're doing essentially, right? So so you do that. Now there's some other things though too. Is like again, it depends on how technical they are. They do have MailChimp. Most of these tools now have kind of like an iPad opt-in, which is a single opt-in kind of thing, which is like a point of sale type of opt-in device. So you could possibly add something like that in, right? So actually, when you're going through your forms, and it depends on, I guess, what your sales flow is at the dealership. But if it's all pencil and paper, it's going to be harder. But if you're actually doing this, entering this into a laptop or into a computer on things, it'd be relatively easy to have them kind of opt in right there. But
Yeah, perfect. So, okay, well, let's talk a minute about your company. Can you kind of give us the 2-minute elevator pitch for what you do?
Sure. So I'm the founder and chief revenue officer for a company called Linchpin, and we help customers gain new clients faster and retain existing customers longer and attain market leadership through sales and marketing automation. Essentially, creating sales and marketing funnels that are repeatable and scalable using software like MailChimp and Infusionsoft and all the rest of it. But it's more about software is not a strategy, so it's helping them understand what they need to do in order to create these sales and marketing funnels, and then to help them kind of implement them over time.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and what's the best way for people to kind of follow you and what you do, and perhaps even contact you?
Yeah, sure. So I respond to all tweets on Twitter. I love Twitter, so it's at Damian Thompson, and then the website is lynchpin.net.
Okay, perfect. And I will link to that stuff in the show notes, so if anybody doesn't have a pen while they're listening to it, just go to the show notes and they can click straight over to that stuff. Damian, you've been very generous with your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
No worries, Ashley. It was a lot of fun.
If you're currently looking for a high-quality auto dealer website, check out our sister site, motorcarsites.com. We offer high-quality auto dealer websites at a very affordable price. Dealers can typically save between $50 and $150 per month by using our service. You can upload as many cars as you'd like at no additional cost. We automatically can export your cars to all the major platforms like Cars.com and AutoTrader, so you don't have to manage your inventory in multiple locations. We can have your new website up and running usually in less than 24 hours. The setup is free and easy, and there are no long-term contracts, so you can cancel at any time. Check out motorcarsites.com to learn more. Just a couple of quick comments on today's interview with Damian. I think Damian's got the right idea with just signing up for something like MailChimp and using that service while you get your email system figured out. Pretty much every time you interact with a customer or a potential customer, you should be getting their email address and adding them to one of your lists. These various tools like MailChimp will allow you to automate a lot of this. So for instance, you'll be able to create a list called prospects and then write up 4 or 5 emails that will get dripped out to them according to how this is set up. Or you can create a list called past customers, and then you can automatically set it up to send them an email a week after they bought a car, 2 weeks, 30 days, and etc. So that you have these touch points, which can really help with customer engagement. Like what I've suggested before with a few of the other marketing types I've talked about on the show, like pay-per-click and Facebook ads, the key is to just get in there and start messing around with the various systems. That's how you're going to learn, and it's going to seem a lot less complicated once you've gotten in there and actually done it for a little while. So that's our show. I hope you got some value out of it, and you can help you grow your business. Thanks for listening.